The acid rain of Vega 9 always found a way to burn through protective gear. Kai Nakamura wiped caustic droplets from his face shield as he trudged through the colony's industrial sector, cursing his luck and the planet's weather in the same breath. Engineering wasn't supposed to include this much running around in chemical storms, he muttered, ducking under a corrugated overhang as thunder cracked overhead. 6 months into his 2-year contract with Helix Mining Corporation, and he'd already developed a specialized hatred for the colony's unpredictable atmosphere. Lightning illuminated the cluster of maintenance sheds ahead. His destination, Pump Station 14, was still half a kilometer away, but the intensifying storm left him little choice. He'd have to wait it out. Selecting the sturdiest-looking shed, Kai punched in the universal maintenance code. The door hissed open, revealing darkness broken only by the dim glow of emergency lighting. He stepped inside, removing his protective hood and breathing in recycled air that tasted only slightly metallic. A soft scraping sound froze him mid-motion. "Hello," he called, hand instinctively moving to the utility knife at his belt. "Maintenance access only. Identify yourself." The sound came again, a shuffling movement from behind a stack of equipment crates. Kai activated his wrist light, illuminating the far corner of the shed. His breath caught in his throat. Huddled against the wall was a figure clearly not human, though humanoid in general shape. Slender limbs wrapped around a torso covered in what appeared to be fine iridescent scales in muted blues and silvers. Her face, and Kai somehow knew immediately it was female, was elfin, with large eyes the color of twilight, and no visible nose, just subtle indentations where one would be on a human. But what struck him most was her obvious distress. The alien woman trembled violently, her scales dulled in patches where the acid rain had clearly made contact. She cringed away from his light, making a soft, keening sound that needed no translation. "Hey, it's okay," Kai said softly, lowering his light. "I'm not going to hurt you." The alien's eyes widened, pupilless and unreadable, but her posture remained defensive. A series of clicks and whistles emerged from her throat. Communication, obviously, but nothing his translator could process. Without thinking about protocols or potential diplomatic incidents, Kai reached into his pack and pulled out his emergency towel, the one luxury item he always carried, still clean and dry in its sealed pouch. "Here," he said, approaching slowly and extending it toward her. "You're soaked, and those burns look painful." The alien woman stared at the offered towel, then at Kai's face. Her trembling intensified, but not from fear. Something else seemed to overtake her. With deliberate slowness, she reached out elongated fingers and took the towel. Then, to Kai's complete confusion, she dropped to her knees, pressing the towel against her chest. A sound emerged from her that couldn't possibly be mistaken, regardless of species barriers. She was crying. I'm sorry," Kai stammered, completely at a loss. "I didn't mean to offend." The alien looked up, tears tracking unusual patterns through the fine scales of her face. She whispered something in her language, musical and liquid, before pressing her forehead to the floor in what could only be described as reverence. Kai stood frozen, the realization dawning that his simple act of kindness had just become something far more complicated. "What have I gotten myself into?" he whispered as the storm raged outside, and the alien continued her incomprehensible ritual before him. 3 days after finding the alien woman in the maintenance shed, Kai sat across from her at his tiny kitchen table, watching with fascination as she carefully traced symbols on his datapad. "Ilara," she said, pointing to herself for the 20th time, the word musical in her throat. Then she pointed to the symbols she'd drawn. "Ilara," Kai repeated, nodding. "And I'm Kai." He touched his chest. A smile transformed her face, the iridescent scales around her eyes catching the light. The translator patch he programmed with fragments of her language was still mostly useless, but they were making progress. "Kai," she echoed, the name sounding exotic in her accent. She reached for the towel, his towel, which hadn't left her possession since he'd given it to her. It now hung around her shoulders like a ceremonial garment. The translator crackled to life. Sacred, binding, gratitude. It managed before dissolving into static. Kai frowned. The towel is important to your people. Ilara nodded vigorously, her eyes intense. She made an elaborate gesture, pressing the cloth first to her heart, then her forehead, then extending it toward him before drawing it back to herself. Soul bond. The translator approximated. Life debt. Well, that escalated quickly, Kai muttered. I just didn't want you catching hypothermia. His comm unit buzzed, displaying a colony-wide alert. ATE Intel all citizens. Report any sightings of unauthorized Nilian nationals to colonial security immediately. Following yesterday's diplomatic incident, all Nilian visitors have been recalled to their embassy. Any unregistered Nilians are to be considered potential security threats. Kai glanced at Ilara, who was studying the alert with evident anxiety. So she was Nilian, and definitely unauthorized. Don't worry, he said, deactivating the screen. I'm not turning you in. As if understanding his meaning, Ilara touched his hand, her first voluntary contact. Her skin was cooler than human temperature, smooth like polished stone. Protector, the translator supplied. Then, surprisingly clearly, bonded. Kai withdrew his hand awkwardly. Look, there's been a misunderstanding. The towel, it was just a towel. On Earth, we give towels to anyone who is wet. Ilara's expression fell. She clutched the towel tighter and spoke rapidly, the translator catching only fragments. Sacred, among Nilians, not accident, fate chosen. A sharp knock at the door silenced them both. Engineering Specialist Nakamura. A stern voice called. Colonial Security. Routine inspection. Kai's heart raced. He motioned for Ilara to hide in the bathroom, mouthing, "Don't make a sound." Opening the door revealed two uniformed officers, their expressions severe. "We're conducting searches of all personnel quarters," the taller one said. "There's been unauthorized Nilian movement in this sector." "I've been at work," Kai replied, feigning calm. "Haven't seen anyone. Mind if we look around?" As the officers brushed past him, Kai noticed one examining the kitchen table, where Ilara's half-finished alien symbols still displayed on his datapad. "Interesting artwork," the officer commented. "Hobby," Kai explained quickly. "Xenolinguistics." The bathroom door remained closed as they completed their inspection. After they finally left, Kai slumped against the wall, adrenaline draining. "That was close," he called softly. Ilara emerged, still clutching the towel. She approached and, to his surprise, touched his cheek with delicate fingers. "Danger for you," the translator managed. "Because of me." As their eyes met, Kai felt something shift between them, something that transcended their language barrier and cultural misunderstandings. Whether it was the mysterious bond she believed existed or simply human compassion, he couldn't deny the connection forming between them. "It'll be okay," he promised, though he had no idea how. "We'll figure this out." Ilara smiled tentatively, the scales along her neck flushing a deeper blue, an emotional response he was beginning to recognize. "Bond promise," whispered the translator. "Sacred vow." Kai sighed. Whatever he'd started by handing her that towel, it was clearly far from over. "So the towel thing," Kai said, gesturing with his fork at dinner 2 weeks later. "It's like marriage." The translator had improved dramatically with Ilara's help, though cultural concepts remained challenging. Ilara tilted her head, considering. "Not marriage," she replied, her actual voice now overlaid with the translator's approximation. Deeper, soul-threading. She sat cross-legged on his couch, wearing his spare coveralls rolled up at the sleeves and ankles. The sight of her adapting to human clothing sent an unexpected warmth through him. "On Nilia," she continued, "offering absorption cloth is intimate, only family or life partners. You give part of yourself, symbolic." Kai nodded slowly. And I just handed it over like it was nothing. Not nothing, Ilara corrected. Kindness. Without expectation. Her scales rippled with a blue-violet flush that Kai now recognized as affection. This makes it more meaningful, not less. Outside, the colony's artificial night cycle had begun. They'd fallen into a routine. Kai worked his shifts while Ilara remained hidden in his quarters, studying human language and culture through his limited library. Each evening, they exchanged knowledge of their worlds. What happens now? Kai asked, setting his plate aside. With the bond. Ilara's expression grew serious. Traditionally, a season of knowing. Learning if souls truly align. She hesitated. But you did not choose with knowledge. I release you from obligation. The formality in her tone struck him, but not from the bond itself. Bond remains until, she struggled for words, until towel giver reclaims cloth with rejection ceremony, or until bonding completes with acceptance. Kai leaned forward. And you? Do you want to be released? The question hung between them. Ilara's gaze met his, unblinking. I know nothing of humans, she said softly. Yet I find myself curious about you. Heat crept up Kai's neck. These past weeks, he'd found himself increasingly drawn to her. Her intelligence, her grace, the way she approached human customs with both humor and reverence. The alienness of her features had transformed from strange to fascinating. I'm curious about you too, he admitted. Ilara moved closer, the towel, now fashioned into a ceremonial sash, still at her side. Then perhaps we honor bond by exploration. No obligation, only possibility. Her hand extended toward his, hovering in the space between them. Kai studied the delicate pattern of scales along her wrist, iridescent in the low light. Slowly, he reached out, intertwining his fingers with hers. The contact sent a pleasant warmth up his arm. Whether pheromonal, electrical, or simply emotional, he couldn't tell, and found he didn't care. Possibility sounds good, he murmured. Ilara's free hand reached up, hesitating before gently tracing the contour of his face. Your skin, she whispered. So strange. Warm. Kai leaned into her touch, his heart racing. The barriers between their species seemed suddenly arbitrary, meaningless compared to the connection forming between them. As if reading his thoughts, Ilara leaned forward. An emergency alert blared from his comm unit, shattering the moment. The screen flashed red. ATTNT All engineering PRSONNEL. Rui PRT 2 ECCTR 7 immediate Eli. Security breach in progress. Beneath the main alert, a secondary message scrolled. All residences in sectors 5 to 8 subject to immediate security sweep. Lockdown protocols in effect. Kai and Ilara pulled apart, the gravity of their situation rushing back. They're coming here, he said, jumping to his feet. And I have to report in or they'll be suspicious. Fear flickered across Ilara's features, but she nodded resolutely. What shall we do? Stay absolutely still, Kai whispered. They crouched in the narrow maintenance tunnel connecting the residential blocks to the hydroponics facility, listening to the heavy footsteps of security patrols passing overhead. 3 days had passed since they'd flooded his quarters, narrowly escaping the colony-wide search. Ilara pressed against him in the darkness, her body temperature cooler than his but gradually warming from their prolonged contact. The sacred towel, now a tattered sash, remained tied around her waist. They're persistent, she whispered, her translator barely audible. The diplomatic situation must be worse than reported, Kai replied, checking his datapad. Colony newsfeed says Nilian representatives have withdrawn completely from negotiations. Ilara's scales dimmed, her equivalent of paling. My presence endangers everything. Why were you running that night? Kai asked, the question he'd been avoiding since finding her. Are you criminal? She shook her head emphatically. Diplomatic apprentice. I discovered evidence that human trade representatives were secretly negotiating with Draxian warlords, the colony's enemies. Kai realized. Yes. When I reported this, my superior disappeared. Then security forces came for me. Her eyes met his in the dim light. Someone powerful wants these dealings hidden. I flowed with evidence, but lost my data crystal in the acid storm. The implication was clear. Whoever wanted her silenced had influence within the colony leadership. So we trust no one, Kai concluded. Except each other, Ilara added softly. When the patrol sounds faded, they continued through the tunnels toward the spaceport. Kai had formulated a desperate plan. Stow away on a supply shuttle bound for the mining outpost on Vega 9's largest moon. From there, they might find passage to neutral space. They emerged in a storage area near the loading docks. Kai pulled Ilara behind a stack of cargo containers as workers moved supplies toward the waiting shuttles. That one, he whispered, pointing to a smaller vessel. Automated cargo run. No pilot. Ilara studied the shuttle, then turned to him with undisguised emotion. You would leave your position, your world, for me. The question struck him deeply. 3 weeks ago, he'd been a solitary engineer focused only on completing his contract. Now he was risking everything for someone who'd been a stranger. I think I would have left eventually, he admitted. Never felt like I belonged here, or anywhere, really. Ilara's hand found his in the shadows. On Nilia, there is a concept, Shertele. Those who recognize each other's souls across void spaces. Kai felt the strange, pleasant buzzing where their skin connected. Soulmates. Similar, but not based on romantic love alone. Recognition of complementary existence. The implications made his pulse quicken. And the towel bond. Perhaps not accident, she said, her scales flushing that now familiar violet blue. Perhaps recognition. Before Kai could respond, Ilara leaned forward, pressing her forehead against his, a Nilian gesture whose meaning was unmistakable in any culture. Her lips, slightly cooler than human temperature but impossibly soft, brushed against his. Time seemed suspended as he returned the kiss, cataloging the differences and similarities. The slight mineral taste, the way her scales raised slightly under his fingertips, the soft harmonic hum in her throat. When they separated, both breathing quickly, Kai felt fundamentally changed, as though some essential boundary had been crossed. That was, he began. Universal, she finished, eyes shining. A sudden commotion near the shuttle broke the moment. Colonial security officers swarmed the loading area, scanners sweeping systematically across cargo containers. They've tracked us, Kai whispered urgently. We need to move. Now. As the officers approached their hiding place, Kai made a split-second decision, squeezing Ilara's hand before stepping into the open. Hey, he shouted, drawing their attention. What you're looking for, it's in the east quadrant. As the officers turned toward him, Ilara slipped from their hiding place toward the shuttle, exactly as he'd hoped. Engineering specialist Nakamura, one officer said, recognition dawning. You're interfering with the security operation. Where is the alien? The shuttle shuddered as it broke through Vega 9's upper atmosphere, the viewport filling with stars as they left the colony behind. Kai winced, adjusting the makeshift bandage on his arm, where a security officer's stun baton had left its mark. Your distraction was effective, Ilara said, piloting the craft with surprising skill, though unnecessarily dangerous. Kai managed a pained smile. Says the woman who dropped from a ventilation shaft onto a security chief. Their escape had been chaotic. Kai creating a diversion while Ilara slipped aboard the shuttle, then her unexpected return to help when officers had cornered him. Somehow they'd fought their way to the shuttle together, launching before the docking clamps could engage. The bond compelled me, she said simply. I couldn't leave you. They'd set course for the neutral trading station at Proxima Belt, rather than the mining moon. Farther, but safer from colonial jurisdiction. The journey would take 3 days in the small craft. Kai moved carefully to the co-pilot's seat, studying Ilara in the starlight. The past month had transformed her from mysterious alien to what? Friend? Partner? Something there wasn't quite a word for in either of their languages. What happens when we reach Proxima? He asked. Ilara's expression grew thoughtful. There is a Nilian enclave there. They can receive my evidence against the corrupt officials. She hesitated. After that, I don't know. The uncertainty hung between them. Two people from different worlds, thrown together by chance and choice. The Towel bond, Kai said quietly. You mentioned completion or rejection. What does completion entail? Ilara's scales flushed deeply, rippling from blue to violet. A ceremony of intention, declaring the accidental bond deliberately chosen. Her eyes met his. But Kai, your world, your career, were never really mine, he finished. I was just passing through, never connecting. He reached across the space between them, taking her hand. Until you. The shuttle's auto-navigation engaged with a soft chime, leaving them suspended among stars, between worlds. There will be complications, Ilara warned. Biological differences, cultural misunderstandings. My people will accept you, but with curiosity, perhaps confusion. And humans might not understand at all, Kai acknowledged. But I'm willing to navigate that, together. Ilara unfastened the towel sash from her waist, the item that had started everything, and spread it between them. Though tattered and stained, in the starlight, it seemed to hold all the significance she'd attributed to it. Then I ask formally, she said, her voice taking on a ceremonial cadence. Kai Nakamura of Earth, do you claim this bond not from accident, but from choice? Not from obligation, but from desire? The universe seemed to pause around them, infinite possibilities crystallizing into this single moment. I do, he answered, the words feeling ancient and new simultaneously. Ilara's smile illuminated her features. She refolded the towel, then guided his hands to help wrap it in a new pattern, binding their wrists together temporarily. The sharing of absorption cloth becomes the sharing of lives, she said softly. What began in kindness continues in choice. As their bound hands touched, Kai felt the now familiar pleasant vibration between them intensify. Whether biochemical, spiritual, or simply emotional, the connection felt undeniably real. I have a feeling, he said, smiling, that there's no proper human translation for what we just did. Ilara laughed, the sound musical. Perhaps we are writing a new language together. The shuttle carried them forward into the darkness, not toward Earth or Nilia, but toward something new, a life neither had imagined before a chance encounter and a simple towel given without thought. Behind them, Vega 9 diminished to a point of light among countless others. Ahead, uncertainty waited, but they would face it as neither fully human nor Nilian, but as something unprecedented. Something chosen. Retriclad can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.